All right, so as I mentioned earlier in some of the discussion and in some comments, you can actually do this inside of either the server version, or you can actually do it inside of the desktop version using the terminal window. So a couple of commands you need to be really aware of. So the dir does a directory of the particular folder that you're in. In this case, I do a dir and it comes up a link. There's nothing in my home folder. So when I see this login, so that Bradley at Ubuntu or your name at Ubuntu, it says, hi, I'm at my home folder. There's nothing in it. That command cd, very important, it says change directory. So I'm going to change to the etc or the etc folder. Now I do a dir, and notice I have a lot of different commands and different programs that hang around in there. And in fact, when we do the apt-get install and we install then your program, you're going to use in this case the FTP program, that is where it's actually going to live at. And so I'm going to do then an apt-get, but remember to do any kind of an install, we almost always have to jump to a command line where we are the administrator. So Windows is a little different. Windows says, hey, I'm always there as an administrator. Linux, we have to tell it, and so we tell it by doing the sudo. So sudo says, hey, I'm going to become the administrator, and so we're going to do an apt get, and then what are we going to get, and what are we going to do with it? And we are going to directly install, and we are going to install a program called VSFTPD. So very secure file transfer protocol. So anytime I do the sudo, it wants my password. So now it has went out, it has said, hey, I'm looking. In this particular case, it says, hey, there's a new package. Do I want to continue and install it? Yes. So now I have installed that particular program. Great. I have some other steps I need to do. So one of the first things I need to do is I want to configure the configuration file for it. And so to do that, I need to know where it's at. So I'm going to do a dir, and because I'm still in that etc folder that I had changed directory to previously, it actually shows up here. But let me just show you what had happened. I'm back in my home directory. I do a dir. I don't see anything. I have to do a change directory, specifying I'm in the etc folder. Now I do a dir, and if we look up here, somewhere up there is the vsftpd.conf. So that says that's my configuration file for that program. So the next piece we need to install is we need some way to edit that configuration file. And the tool we're going to use is actually called Vim. It's a text editor, really powerful. You can build an entire operating system if you really wanted to. But again, we need to download and install it. So sudo apt get install Vim. All right, now Vim is installed and updated. We can actually then work with Vim. And so one of the things that's going to happen, and I'm going to do this on purpose, I'm going to go back to my home directory. So again, nothing there when I do a dir, and I'm going to enter the command. So I'm going to do sudo, because we're going to make changes, so we have to come in as super user. Vim, I'm going to make the Vim program run, or the text editor, and the file I want is vsftpd.conf. I know that, but what happens, I have a blank file now. Well, why do I show a blank file? Well, the reason I'm showing a blank file is because I'm not in the right directory. And so there's not a file called that in that directory I'm at, but it's willing to make one for me. But I don't want a new file. And so I'm going to go out and I'm going to quit. And so I'm going to :q. So all that does is tell me that it's going to quit. And now I'm back at my command line. And so now I can say, oh, well, I know the mistake. I can do cd/etc. Now I can do the same command. And one of the tricks, notice those up arrow keys. So it remembers some of the things I've done. So I can go back actually several different levels here. So I'm going to go back. And so notice I have sudo vim vsftpd.configure. So now I'm going to do it. I'm in the right directory. I'm pointing to the right file. So the same result. I'll get a blank file if I don't have a file named that, or I named it incorrectly. So, well, Vim is a really powerful editor. There's two different modes that it operates on, and so it's a little different. There's tons of videos on how to run Vim. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of that. The biggest piece is it's got two modes, either insert mode or kind of an overwrite mode. And so if I want to toggle an insert mode, I just hit the I key, and the I key says, oh, and if you notice down at the bottom of the screen, and I can, right down here, it says insert. Well, that tells me I'm in insert mode and I can actually edit text. If I hit the escape key, now the insert goes away and I'm just really in a navigation mode. So I can navigate around and I can change specific targets in there. And so notice I'm scrolling down. So there's actually 3 different files that we need to change in here to make this work the way we want to try it. And so we need anonymous enable equals no. And in this particular version that I've downloaded, it's already done. So it says anonymous enable equals no. If I see this pound sign, that means that line is commented out. And so it's a great way I can turn things on and off. In this case, local enable equals yes is turned on. So steps 1 and 2 actually are already done for us in this particular version. So if I've got an older version or I'm on a different version of Ubuntu, I may find that those are different. The one we do need to turn on, though, that is turned off is this write enable yes. Well, here it is sitting there. I'm going to hit the delete key because I think, well, I'll just delete that pound sign. Oh, look, managed to do it. Life's great. I'm not in insert mode. So now I say, well, I need to save this file now because now those 3 things are changed and there's a lot of other configurations. In fact, you can scroll down and you can look at all the different configurations that you can set up in this. I want to get out of Vim. And so I always do colon and Q to get out, but I really want to write that file first. I want to save my changes. So I'm going to do colon and I'm going to do W for write and Q for quit, and then I'm going to hit the enter key. And now it kicks me back to my command line. So it's exited Vim and now I'm back. So now I have a configuration file that is set up correctly for me to try this FTP program. And remember that FTP program allows me to connect to this computer from other devices. So a couple of different things that I want to do. There is one difference, and I sent it in the email, that on step 8 we have to change this a little bit. Okay, so make sure when you do this, if I just try a sudo, so again I'm coming in as it's going to give me an error and say, hey, it's not really found. So what we're really restarting, or starting in some cases, is actually that something called a service. So we need to make sure that we use the nomenclature that's correct, and it differs in slightly different versions of Ubuntu versus other operating systems. So we need to find the correct one, and I believe I put it in an announcement for you. So make sure you've looked at your announcements, because you'll find I put in a lot of information for you in there. So what else can we do? Well, we can actually check and see if it works. So we have to turn on the service. So you'll have to figure out how to do that on step 8. And again, I give you some clues. You can actually do it by process of elimination. So you could try start. So it seems to be some way in the way we're saying start or restart. So we could say, oh, sudo service. So you'll need to find the appropriate nomenclature, and that's actually in, again, those announcements. But sometimes that trial and error gives us some clues about what's going on. One of the other things we do in a lot of ipconfig inside of Windows, because it gives us a lot of details about that network connection. Well, we're going to try this locally. So step 9 says we go to a loopback address. We says, hey, is this open? What's interesting, though, is we can actually go into this FTP program, just like we'd load on a website or something else. We can do it from another computer. And to do that, though, we need to know the IP address that's associated with this account. So I can go if config. Now, if config is going to give me a lot of information. So the 127 we know is that loopback address, but if I look up top, I am getting an address of 10.0.2.15. And so I can use that address, and actually from another computer on the same network here, I can actually get to it and I can send and receive data once that FTP site is up. So if I'm going to move files, and we don't want to use a pretty interface, so if you're in the web design class, you could actually use your FileZilla to move files to and from your server now, but you can also use just get and put commands once you're inside of FTP. So, and notice once I run FTP, notice it becomes its own icons there. So we could get a file, whatever that file is, but it's going to say, hey, we're not connected because we haven't made that connection. So if you want to look at commands, take a look at this. Oh, there we have all our commands. So you can see what we can do inside of FTP to connect and look at it. So it really is a really powerful commands and a set of issues we can use in here. The command line gives us a lot of power. We can automate scripting, and we can do a lot of great things.